I felt the opening sequence was very evocative of the genre, in the sense that I enjoyed the idea of the sort of small British film, and I thought it encapsulated that very well. There was a real very similitude to it, a real realism to it, that I think was quite powerful. There's a real mundanity to it, and that kind of binary opposition between the mundanity of her experience and then how the sequence ends with her discovering the painting and the art was really nicely played out, and I like that. I like that kind of narrative trope you get in a lot of independent film, where kind of the ordinary becomes extraordinary, and I think that came across really clearly. I also think as well you chose very, very effectively in terms of your protagonist, because I thought she was very powerful and very evocative without having any dialogue.
I thought it was very good. It was very intriguing. It made me kind of want to know a bit more about the story. The different elements worked really well together. In particular, the composition, framing, cinematography was very good. The use of light was very good. You had a nice balance between natural light and your studio lighting looked very natural and authentic. And your titles were also quite good. It was a good choice of font because it retained a very readable nature. It was a serif font, but it kind of had a quirky kind of look to it that made it unique, which is really good.
I thought the plot was really original, actually. I thought it was a I like the idea of the focusing down on the girl, and her experiences and her sort of her introversion. I thought that was really interesting in it, sort of examining her character, and then to do that through a rather unconventional means of art and the art materials. I thought it was really nice. I think there was there wasn't much to it, but I don't mean that as a criticism, because it didn't feel slight. It felt like you were using the art to explore sort of wider themes and her wider issues. So I thought that was very good.
So you could tell that something was going on. It was quite mysterious, but I'd say that it was definitely interesting. It made you want to know more. It was able to draw the audience in, but it didn't reveal too much, so it didn't tell the full story. Obviously, it being an opening sequence, that's important, so it's very good.
I think that's affected really well by use of colour. I think the use of the kind of the blue, the cold tints, this idea of sort of isolation and sort of disconnection from the world was really clear. And then obviously again with the binary opposition at the end, and the contrast with the brightness of the paints, I thought was really strong. I think that you managed to convey it. I think you managed to convey loneliness. I think that's what I felt from it. Whether I think you've equated loneliness with introversion, whether those two things are the same is maybe something you could have explored a little more. I mean, it's hard to capture kind of a feeling or an emotion. And I say, I think with the use of colour, there was that sense of disconnection and isolation, but introversion maybe needed some other people in the opening sequence to show that specific idea more clearly.
I suppose you kept it a kind of a solitary piece, so you could see that the protagonist was lonely. That was displayed in her facial expressions and acting, but also different aspects like nice wide shots that would seem relatively empty. It's a very good way of portraying someone's loneliness, as well as eating something as simple as eating a microwave meal on their own and looking sad. It's a good way of showing that someone is kind of on their own.
I think it's quite subtle. I think that's an effective element. I think it's an intelligent investigation of the theme of introversion. Although, as I said, maybe that definition of that is slightly muddied and tied in with other things like loneliness, etc. I think the kind of the theme of discovery and the theme of expression, self-expression, which is what I would guess the art is tied into, is really nicely encapsulated in that final shot. I think it's an extreme close-up, if I remember precisely, when she smiles. And again, this was where your choice of actor really came through very effectively. You only see her eyes, but she's got really smiley eyes. You can really see the smile in her eyes, and I think that's, again, there's a subtlety to it and there's an underplaying to it, which is conventional of independent film, which is really effective. So I think that idea of self-expression, I actually think self-expression was maybe more relevant and maybe better expressed and maybe clearer as a theme than, for example, introversion or being introverted.
The themes of discovery and how your main character discovers art are very good, because you can see that there's some kind of internal conflict in the first section up until the point at which she makes the discovery, and then mostly down to the acting and cinematography, it's very obvious that she's discovered something that is kind of going to enlighten her somehow, going to help her resolve those conflicts.
Technically, it was really strong. I think it was really strong. And although I would maybe have said to show off more of your skills, for example, I don't know, sound, you could have included more dialogue, I actually think that would have detracted from it. I think the quietness of the scene is actually really, really powerful. So I think that was actually quite a brave decision, actually, to sort of limit your sound in that way. I guess if you did want to talk about, if you were really focused on about your character being introverted, as I say, I'm not sure that's what it shows. I think it, as I say, more shows issues about self-expression, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it works effectively in terms of that. I liked your credits. I thought it was clear in terms of a brand, and I like your positioning of credits. I think that was institutionally conventional. I wonder if your title of the film, the title font, was maybe a little slight, maybe a little too positive, maybe in terms of the opening sequence, maybe felt a little bit out of sync with the mood that was established in it. Although, having said that, it might make more sense in terms of the whole narrative of the film, because obviously it's about her discovering self-expression. It's about her, discovering herself through art. So then it might make more sense. But it maybe felt a little bit like a font from sort of a romantic comedy or something like that. So maybe, choice of fonts. And I think sometimes the credits are a bit of an afterthought, and I think that's maybe something that people don't always give enough attention to, and that was maybe true with yours.
Improved in terms of having, if you had more professional equipment available to you, a couple of dolly shots that may be slightly shaky, and the shot where you follow her to the barn, that could be improved slightly, but only in terms of actual camera operation. Aside from that, it was very good. Perhaps some very detailed macro shots could be used. So, for example, where she lifts the cloth off of the paints all over the table, you can see that there's some dust kind of blown away. You can often get a really nice shot using particular lighting, which you could have had coming through that crack in the door. This is a very specific thing, but just showing that dust blowing and settling, it's those kind of shots make it look that little bit more artistic. So a few very close kind of macro style shots every now and then could look really nice.
Definitely. I mean, I really like independent film. Anyway, I've got, you know, I'm a big supporter of independent film, and I like an intriguing narrative. I like a stately pace. I like quite a slow pace narrative, and I think yours sets up the idea of having quite a stately pace, and I like that. And I found your protagonist interesting, and so I think that was a lot of that was carried by the quality of her acting and the quality of her performance. But yeah, I certainly would be intrigued to watch it more, and yeah, because I found it an engaging. I didn't think it gave much away about the narrative, but I felt it gave enough to kind of create an enigma about this character and who she was. And I think even in the first opening sequence, I think you connected with her. I think I felt happy for her because she looked so miserable and she was really sad, and she texted her mum, and then she said she was fine, but she clearly wasn't. So I felt you connected with her in the you know, even in that short amount of time, and I felt pleased for her. You know, there was a real emotional pleasure there in terms of happiness when, you know, she did that smile and she discovered the art. So certainly that tells me that I would be intrigued to watch more.
Absolutely, yeah. I definitely would watch the film. It's the only real way to make a fair judgment, but in terms of an opening sequence, it's definitely intriguing enough that it would make me kind of want to know more. So.
Thank you.